But Christina, I had a question for you that I wrote down while you were talking, because you've worked a lot with detransitioners, right? So this is completely a new topic.
Yeah.
From your conversations with detransitioners, would you say that a lot of detransitioners would say now that being trans was a belief that was based on some type of socialization, or that they would say now, after detransitioning, that it was still some type of biological something?
That's a great question, because that's what I focus on. No, I mean, I did a survey of detransitioners last year that I'm working on getting published, and one of the most important findings, I think, from that survey was that 85% said that their healthcare provider conceptualized their trans identity to them as a medical condition that required medical treatment, or a biological aspect of them that they had no control over. And I think like the power dynamics between like your healthcare provider and you, a patient, many of these people were a teenager when they transitioned, or a very young adult. Like, of course, they're going to listen to their doctor. They did. I would do the same thing in that position. But no, like there is no real robust empirical evidence that supports like a biological basis for an innate kind of gender identity. A lot of them now will say that they were either misdiagnosed with gender dysphoria, or that they did have gender dysphoria, but it resolved. But no, I think a lot of them, most of them, feel very betrayed by the medical establishment, because they were lied to about the nature of their condition, and now they're left with the consequences.
Would you characterize it as a false belief, being
Yeah.
trans?
Well, I mean, this is how trans is conceptualized to people today. It's because of the success of the gay rights campaign, the Born This Way campaign, where I would say, like, yeah, I think gay people are born that way, but it doesn't apply to trans. Like, a trans identity is something that people adopt, and usually after making social or medical steps in order to be perceived as opposite sex. But gender dysphoria is a psychiatric condition with a very high rate of desistance. And that hasn't changed.
But if there's like trans activists listening right now, they're throwing up in their mouth just like Peter was just recently. Because they say, no, it's 1% or lower of detransitioners, people who regret
those studies are methodologically flawed, and they are studying an entirely different cohort than most people are concerned about today. They were studying like adults on a completely different model of care, rather than teens and young adults under the gender affirmation model of care. So those studies are completely useless. They say nothing about the current cohort that people are concerned about. There was like a comprehensive medical review of medical records recently in the last couple of years that found like 30% of teens and young adults discontinued hormone use after about 4 years, which is much, much higher than 1%. And this is the actual cohort that people are concerned about. So yeah, the journalists, they keep repeating the lie that it's, a very, very small proportion. But the truth is, like, we don't know. The detransition rate is unknown because gender clinics in the United States are not keeping track of the data. So we have no idea, really.